What are your thoughts, John, on these accelerating threats of a Rafah invasion? What do you make of uh, these excuses that the Israelis are making, that they're doing everything they can to prevent civilian casualties? The U.S. is saying that well, we can't do anything. The invasion is imminent. What do we make of what's happening there?
Yeah, and Blinken called it an extraordinarily, he said it twice, generous offer,
Yeah.
the latest prisoner exchange proposal. I think we've been following the Rafah invasion. I've said it week after week. We will see that the buildup for that, if the invasion is intended to be the same as it was in other places in Gaza, we will see the buildup of those troops that we're not seeing right now. Rafah is a complicated operation for the Israelis compared to other places. Rafah is along the border with Egypt, which creates a situation for Israel. Rafah is populated, of course, with not only the population of Rafah, but at least 1 million other Palestinians that have fled from other areas. Yeah. There's nothing like a systematic removal of the civilians from the Rafah area, which is something the Americans said has to happen, although the Secretary of Defense yesterday said at that House Armed Services Committee, he said, hopefully right, the civilians will be removed before that operation. So I think at this point, they're using Rafah as a point of leverage in these negotiations, because they've lost the war. They haven't achieved any of the objectives that they've said. If Netanyahu makes an agreement without any of those objectives met, it's the end of his career. It's the end of the government.
Well, Smotrich said it would be the end of the state itself if they, quote, let Sinwar win. I mean, they know, they can see the writing on the wall that they've lost.
Yeah, they're calling it an existential fight.
Yeah.
Calling it an existential fight when you're clearly losing the war just seems like such a bold claim by the Israelis, but maybe it is. I mean, a lot of these things can't really be put back. The toothpaste can't be put back in the tube on this. This is the collapse of Zionism happening. Even just the Ali segment, those lies are all premised on the idea that their army was completely absent for an entire day, that their army can't defend their populations. I mean, when those stories first started, when they started lying about those stories, it was, even for a cynic, it was surprising that was the angle that they wanted to take, that their army was completely helpless. All of those individual superhero stories are all lies that cover over the fact that their army was completely absent. And so I don't know why Israel would want to say this is an existential struggle, but they're clearly losing the war. Their own population knows they're losing the war. I don't think there's going to be any serious military analyst in the years to come that will say anything other than that either. So if they want it to be an existential war, they're losing that war. I think the writing's on the wall.
If I can just add regarding Rafah, I mean, just to say that the mood from people that were in touch with the Rafah is really one of terror. Yeah. I mean, people feel that it's even the threat of it, the thought of it is torture. People who are in Rafah have said to me, it's psychological warfare. People don't know what to do. Some people, more people are trying to get to Egypt, which of course may be one of Israel's goals. Others are trying to get to Deir al-Balah or back to Khan Yunis. I mean, people really don't know where to go. And in terms of any so-called preparations by Israel, they've bragged about procuring tents, as if tents is going to be any, when all the infrastructure is destroyed, water, sanitation, food, and they're still not letting food in. And then we learned this week that the World Central Kitchen, which we, of course, have covered extensively here, is resuming its operations in Gaza, even as Israel continues to prevent UNRWA from operating and, prevent aid from coming in anything like the quantities that are needed, is very worrying, particularly since, as the New York Times reported, World Central Kitchen is setting up operations in Al Mawasi, which is this tiny coastal village which Israel claims is where 1.5 million people are going to go, and that's absolutely ridiculous. So I do worry that it's not that they're going to do a PR op, a public relations operation. Oh, we prepared, we made humanitarian provisions and then just go in and do it anyway. But, John, at this point, as you said, the reason you've said to us that, well, or at least if I'm not misinterpreting what you've said, it would take a lot of buildup, it would take a lot of preparation that is not necessarily in place now in terms of mobilizing forces and so on. But if, as you've said, their goal is just destruction and murder and not actually to make any military achievements, if you've pointed out, they don't talk about the tunnels anymore. They don't talk about going into the tunnels or destroying the tunnels. They've given up on any actual military goal. Then it really might just be destroy everything. And then, as we've been on live, and also the other thing over the last few days is that there's been some optimism, including in Gaza. People have say to me, "Oh, is it real? Are the negotiations going to reach a ceasefire?" And then now the headline today in Haaretz is optimism wanes over Israel-Hamas deal. And I think it's the same pattern. Netanyahu will go along with the negotiations, and then just at the moment when it looks like the optimism rises, he pulls the rug from under the negotiators, or he refuses, and it's back to square one, because the negotiations are a charade that allows the war to this goalless war, other than genocide, to continue. And for Netanyahu, everybody knows that any kind of deal, even a temporary deal, which Hamas, of course, and the resistance won't accept, but even if they would, that would be a disaster for Netanyahu, because even a temporary truce would probably provide enough political space in Israel for the political infighting or the protests to put real pressure on Netanyahu that might topple him. So I think his one option is the war, and it's up to the rest of us to keep up the pressure from outside. And it's not very hopeful, but what is hopeful is one of my fears was that after this went on for long enough, the world would go back to business as usual and forget about Gaza, and it would become a minor story on, the back pages. And that hasn't happened. And, outrage and pressure and anger is growing. And right now it's taking the form of the student uprising, primarily in the United States, but around the world. We've seen protests in almost every country, but that has to keep up.
It does.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment. These engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on donate now. Thank you.